communication. In some of the research, it was observed that males have shown great competence level in learning science and maths, whereas females have shown great competence level in learning English language or second language. There are also differences in the usage of learning strategies, differences in conversation, in language inciting, in classroom responses, and in adopting learning environment. In my literature review part, the second part of my, there are two parts in my literature review. The second part of literature review was edited as per the advice of my panel. My first part consists of the key constructs of the psycholinguistic, basic psycholinguistic theories, and I classified it based on the period they were invented, which is known as social psychological period, cognitive situative period, and process-oriented period. In the social psychological period, Gardner and Lambert talked about research with integrative and instrumental motivation. Tasleem and Ryan spoke of controlled and autonomous motivation, and they mostly worked with intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And Zoltan Dorney worked on motivational self-system. Gardner and Lambert spoke about integrative and instrumental motivation. They said that integrative occurs when a person wants to learn the language, the second language, and at the same time he wants to be part of the target speaking group. As you can see in the picture, that the cat is trying to become the penguin. They said that language is a tool that allows you to join another group in some way. It could be traveling, it could be immigrating, alien communities, meeting tourists, anything. And instrumental occurs when a person wants to learn the language for some study pressure or forced demands. Well, as you can see in the picture, that this person is forced to learn this language. They said language is a tool that allows you to get something. It could be test scores, it could be job, university certification, anything. And during the cognitive situated period, Tasleem and Ryan spoke about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. They said that intrinsic occurs when a person wants to learn the language for some self-satisfaction, whereas extrinsic occurs when a person wants to learn the language for getting some reward or to avoid some punishment. But if you look at these two theories in a different angle, you see that intrinsic in a way is referring towards integrative motivation, and extrinsic in a way is referring towards instrumental motivation. Because these theories always complement each other, and they have similar types of variables. Looking at second language motivation came with a completely new dimension when Zoltan Dorney came up with his motivational self-system. He did not work on the categories of motivation. Instead, he worked on the different stages of motivation. He said that in the first stage, he worked with human brains and the scanning of human brains. He said that in the first stage, you have a very strong imagination. And that imagination is so vivid and real. For example, you imagine that yes, after 5 years or after 10 years, I will be speaking very fluently in English language. It is not that imagination that you ask to 10-year-old and he says that I want to be a doctor. It is that vivid imagination that when you close your eyes, you can see that you are wearing the doctor's apron, you are going to the doctor's chamber, you are curing your patients. So when you have that strong imagination, you are in the ideal level self. And in the second stage, you go towards the actual self. This time, you have already started taking some measures of how to improve your language. For example, you can be part of those English language speaking group. You can be part of the coaching center. You can buy new books. And gradually, you move towards the actual learning experience. This time, you have already started using English language or that second language for your practical learning. In my research gap, this research gap was not clearly written in my previous research advancement paper. It was edited as per the advancement of my panels. As you see, Monsieur Fourie presented councils falsely found motivational differences across genders among French language learners. Majority research on motivation and gender differences in European research were conducted on French language learning, and the European and the Asian researchers conducted their research on English language learning. But the gap with their research and my research is that they have stopped at one point. After finding out the motivational orientation and differences across male and female learners, it could be any level learners, primary level, secondary level, master's level, they stopped their research right at that point. But they did not find out how these motivational orientations or differences impact on English language learning or the second language learning. That means if you have more motivation, does that impact on your second language learning? If you have different patterns of motivation, does that impact on your second language learning or not? And in my research, this is the research gap, and I believe this was supposed to be done a long time back, but I think this is a new unique thing in my research. Tasleem Ara Ashraf found gender difference regarding age, learning styles, and achievement in EFL learning, but they mainly conducted their research on quantitative measurements of motivation. But you see, motivation is a complex factor. It is itself a complex factor and is related to numerous other complex factors. So no single theory or method has yet captured its total complexity. So you need both quantitative measurements, quantitative analysis, and qualitative analysis to understand student motivation or learners' motivation. Our panel member, Professor Mohammed sir, also had 3 related research. I also disturbed him sometimes to give him some of his research. I also gave reference of his research. They also found motivational differences across genders among tertiary level students. Now, majority research in our country were conducted on tertiary level students. But the context of tertiary level and the context of Alia Madrasa are completely different. Alia Madrasa students do not get that much facilities that tertiary level students receive. Sultana Mehmet Abidin Hussain conducted research on EFL learning in Alia Madrasas and discovered major problems like with textbook materials, uninteresting lessons, methods of teaching, but they completely ignored motivation and gender differences in learning second language. Therefore, I can say again that in madrasa education, no research was ever conducted on learners' motivation and gender difference in EFL learning. So my main focus of the study revolves around motivational patterns across genders in second language acquisition, impact of motivational variations across genders in second language acquisition, influence of teaching materials on second language motivation across genders, and impact of teaching methods on second language motivation. In my theoretical perspective, I used Scott's model. I like this model because it is a modified model that I used. Scott actually conducted his research on motivational orientation of Canadian university students who are learning French language as a second language learner. I use this research because it is a micro and macro factors assessment model. Because he considered 2 theories, which is socio-educational model predictors and cognitive model predictors. My model is modified because I also added process model predictors. Based on this model, I redesigned my conceptual framework as per the advice of my panels. As you can see, gender difference in second language motivation were investigated from 2 different streams. Gender difference based on motivational orientations and gender difference based on teaching learning environment. To understand teaching learning environment and how do students behave inside their classroom is a very important thing in motivational studies, because you never know what is actually happening inside the classrooms unless and until you visit the classrooms. That's why I have to include classroom observation. There are questionnaire survey and focus group discussion for students, questionnaire survey for teachers, content analysis, classroom observation, and teachers interview. Do not be overwhelmed with this diagram. You only see the middle part of this diagram. As you can see, I used socio-educational model predictors, which means integrating instrumental. I tested students integrating instrumental motivation, tested students desire, goal specificities, tested students ideal learner to self or to to self, and also I noticed the cognitive model predictors and process model predictors. In my methodology part, there are different sources of data that I utilized. There was questionnaire for students. 600 Dhaka students were randomly selected from 30 Alia madrasas. There were teacher questionnaire and interview. What are the key questions for FGD? Focus group discussion. There were 6 focus group discussions, 3 conducted in male campuses, 3 in the female campuses. Textbook evaluation checklist were prepared using the checklist of Wahid and J, and classroom observation checklist was prepared from the modified checklist of blenders and Moscovites. As you can see, the student participants, these are the percentage of students that I selected from 5 different districts, and these are the teacher participants from 5 different districts. In my data analysis part, I would like to analyze my data after each research question so that you can relate what answers I have found after each research question. So while I'm going back to the first research question, it deals with what are the different motivational patterns across genders from Dhaka level madrasa students for learning English language. As you can see, these are the predictor variables. I used, there are specific number of questions for each variable, testing each variable for desire, integrated motivation, instrumental motivation. I tried to test students' parental encouragement, how much peer and teacher encouragement they are getting, whether they have ideal into self or true into self, learning experience, and self-determination. In my data analysis procedure, I use discriminant function analysis because there are 2 things, male and female. ANOVA was required several times for my study because For each statement or questionnaire, I had to find out first whether there are significant differences across genders. And whenever I found significant differences across genders, I had to go for percentage differences of how many students are strongly agreeing with this idea, how many students are strongly disagreeing with this idea. There was a 5-point Likert scale, and based on those 5-point Likert scale, there were independent sample t-test, compare means. There are 3 types of analysis: univariate, bivariate, and multivariate analysis. I required bivariate analysis because I also had to see, show the association between two variables. For example, whether there are association between motivation and achievement, whether there are any association between cultural influences and student motivation. As you can see, since there were both dependent and independent variables in my research, these are the coding that I used for identifying these variables, and this is the model that I used to make my quantitative measurements of the data. I also could run a multiple linear regression model because they were both dependent and independent variables. In my desire to learn English language, as you can see, blue lines are for males and pink lines are for females. So it suggests that females have more desire to learn English language. They wish to start English language at an early age, they wish to be fluent English language speaker, but males sometimes think that they want to drop English language learning. That means they are not motivated enough. That means they want to give up sometimes, which clearly shows that female Alia Madrasa students at Dakhil level have more desire to learn English language. The same thing is observed in integrative motivation as well. More females want to watch English movies and programs. And the females said that it is fun to learn English language. Very few males said that it is fun to learn English language. These are actually the data of strongly agree and agree options. Because I tried to make it minimized so that you can clearly understand what is happening. And majority males think that learning English language is difficult. During my focus group discussion, majority males told that their parents encourage them to learn English language, but they do not get any encouragement from their parents in watching English movies, English serials, because to be honest with you, English language learning in the Alia Madrasas are still stigmatized because of the Western cultural influences. In instrumental motivation, the same thing was observed. Females have more instrumental motivation. They need to learn English language. As the textbooks are in English, they need to learn to get good scores. In the national stage, I wanted to know how many students are spending money for extra tuition. Very few male and female can afford money for extra tuition in Dakhil level, because when I visited their madrasa, I found that even in the best semi-government and government madrasas also, they pay only 400 taka per month in the schools. That means they come from a very poor background. In the monthly income of parents of the responses of Alia Madrasa, it was observed that female Alia Madrasa students' parents are wealthier than male Madrasa students. This is the total mean score which observes, which shows that female Madrasa students' scores are higher than male Madrasa students. That means they have more motivation than male. In their average rate of English language proficiency, both male and female learners think that they have average rate of English language proficiency. As all the variables, majority variables fall under the females, it shows that they have stronger desire, stronger integrative motivation, stronger instrumental motivation, stronger parental encouragement. So all the variables fall under the females. We feel that Alia Madrasa females at Dakhil level are more motivated to learn English language than males. In my research question 2, I tried to identify how do the motivation differences across genders affect students' English language learning. So I had to find out what kind of learning strategies they are using. These are actually the basic learning strategies learners usually use to learn a second language. People, they consciously or unconsciously use this. For example, these are the learning strategies that Rebecca Oxford told us. They are called cognitive strategies, compensation strategies, memory strategies, social strategies, affective strategies, metacognitive strategies. In Hamad's research, it was found that learners with stronger desire and motivation to learn a target language is likely to use effective learning strategies to learn a second language. Where Page have identified that learning strategies are conscious thoughts that are intended to enhance the learning, or the use of the target language. When there's a very skilled audience sitting in front of you. If I ask them how did they learn English language, they must have used any of these strategies, but unconsciously they have used any of these strategies. So I wanted to find out what kind of strategies male and female Alia Madrasa students are using. It shows that female Alia Madrasa students are using effective learning strategies than male. For example, they keep reading it until it makes sense. Cognitive strategies refer to giving reasoning, repeating, and analyzing. When you read anything, you keep reading it until it makes sense. Female madrasa students, Alia madrasa students keep reading their text. They talked about their English Portuguese stories. Whenever they do not understand any story, they try to keep reading it over and over again so that until they understand the meaning. But otherwise, male students, what do? They actually sit for their teachers, wait for their teachers, so that their teachers explain the meaning in Bangla and then they understand the meaning. Female feel more comfort in using English language while writing notes and SMS. They also enjoy EFL classes and they also enjoy learning English culture. Motivational differences of compensation strategy. Compensation strategy refer to understanding the body language, understanding the underlying meaning of the text. Because writers always reveal their thoughts slowly and gradually. So if you do not infer, if you do not guess, reading is quite like a guessing game. The more accurately you guess, the more the accurate meaning you can get very easily. So it was observed that females use context clues. When they do not understand the meaning of a text, they try to understand it by reading other words that is written before that word or after that word. They sometimes also use dictionary and they ask teachers. Here also it is observed that females are using more compensation strategy. Memory strategy does not refer to memorization. It refers to, can you visualize the memorized spelling? Can you visualize the word you have just studied in your other day and now you're using it in your next day for doing any lessons or for doing any activities? And it was observed that the same females are using more memory strategies than males. They can visualize memorized spellings, they can review their English lessons, they can use new words in syntaxes. In social strategies, it was observed that more females are learning partners, they are asked and answer questions in class, and they also watch English TV shows. The anxiety-free classroom. Every individual experiences some language anxiety or classroom anxiety in a second language classroom. For example, if this was not a pre-submission seminar, if I was teaching French language or Spanish language in this classroom, even people with superb communicative ability must have experienced some language anxiety, classroom anxiety. So you need to manage your positive and negative emotions when you are inside the classroom. So it was observed that more females feel relaxed inside their English language classrooms. Instead, male feel that they really feel anxiety inside the classrooms and they think that English language learning is very difficult. For metacognitive strategies, can they take risks? It was observed that more females want to take risks. Taking risks means, since it is a second language, you should not worry about making errors. When you are a beginner of English language learner, you can speak in English even with many errors. Can you do that? Among the female madrasa students, it was observed that they can speak English with many errors. Because when I went for the focus group discussion, I started my focus group discussion with Bangla language because I wanted my students to be relaxed in my classroom. And when I started speaking in English, they were very excited. The female madrasa students were very excited. They also tried to speak in English. They were making numerous errors, but they at least tried. But in male campuses, I did not find any male students try to speak in English during my FGD sessions. They also can evaluate their own progress and plan on reading English every day. So you see, for using effective learning strategies, it is also reflected in their results. If you look at the results, you see that majority females, it is the result of their pre-dakhil exam. Before giving dakhil exam, they give a pre-dakhil exam. It was observed that females have received better marks. Only look at that part and this part. You see that they have majority females receive above 74% marks, but if you see the failing grades, you see that majority males fail and very few females receive failing grades. Because people with strong determination and motivation are likely to do better classroom assessments because they can determine their goals and take necessary actions to bring perfections. This is the Desi and Ryan report, which means female Alia Madrasa students at Dakhil level have more motivation, they use more effective language learning strategies, and that is also reflected in their English language classroom assessments. The third research question deals with how do the textbooks of English language at back in level in Alia Madrasa contribute to the cultural and pedagogical realization. I wanted to find out, are there any cultural influences that demotivate them to learn English language? Because teaching materials and learning tasks work on students' level of motivation, concentration, and enjoyment for an extended duration. And motivation refers to interest and enthusiasm for the materials used in the class. So teaching materials is of great importance, which can motivate the students to learn English language. In the analysis from FGDs, we found that males fail to understand contextual meaning of the text, but females try to read the text over and over again. Learning grammar rules are boring. Both male and females said that learning grammar rules are boring because in Alia Madrasa they teach grammar in a deductive manner. That is not communicative language teaching. They write grammar rules. They tell the students to memorize those grammar rules. So it is very boring to them. Males fail to understand when story settings relate to Western lifestyle, but females try to understand vocabulary from the dictionary. Males fail to understand many vocabulary from the textbooks, and they always wait for the teachers to explain the meaning. Whereas females think that speaking and writing activities are quite interesting. Speaking activities are very difficult in the textbook. That's what the males said. Because English for today, which they are studying right now, this is the textbook that they read right now. This is not the English for today before 2012. After 2012, it has been updated and modified, and it is quite a standard textbook right now. It has all learning outcome written before each lesson and the way of how you should teach English language, and that is why teachers should follow those learning outcomes. Males said that they make numerous errors while writing tasks, but females said that writing and reading activities of English for today are quite interesting. They also complete something about the binding quality of the textbook because this is in newsprint paper and they have to use this textbook for almost 2 years. It is quite difficult for them. Males said that they do not enjoy lessons, whereas females said that they enjoy lessons from English for today. In the teacher's opinion, they said that there are cultural elements in the textbook, but during the interview, they said that these cultural elements always demotivate the students because whenever they do not understand any cultural references in their stories, it demotivates them. Learners are bored of similar tasks. They fail to perform functions. They can perform functions taught in real life, but very few teachers said that they can perform the functions taught in real life. For example, there are some tasks like can you book a ticket from Bukhara to Delhi to Dhaka, things like that. So it actually does not go with the economic background of Alia Madrasa students. They are motivated on participating in tasks and activities, and teachers also said that their printing quality needs to be improved. I have given an example to show how cultural influences have negative impact on student motivation and classroom anxiety. As you can see, if you can see the green box, you see I wrote a sentence which says, Mrs. Jones had a simple episode last night without any episode of arithmetic. Even people with high English language skills will not be able to understand this sentence because I've used some very critical medical terms here. So when you don't understand anything inside the classroom, you will have some language anxiety, classroom anxiety. The same thing happens to Alia Madrasa students when they find some cultural influences. If you see the meaning of this text is simply, Mrs. Jones collapsed last night. She did not have any irregular heartbeat, but she fainted. But whenever I'm using these medical terms, the meaning becomes obscure. If you look at this pink box, I have written some very easy words: cat, dog, book, house, tree. These words are there in the schema of Alia Madrasa students. For example, whenever I'm uttering cats, dogs, instantly we can think of a 4-footed animal. But if you look at this yellow box, these are the words that has been taken from English for today, the existing textbook that we are using. You see Stratford on Avon. There was a story of William Shakespeare's birthplace autobiography, and the sentence starts with, William Shakespeare was born on Stratford on Avon, in Stratford on Avon. So whenever they find street names like this, it somehow makes them anxious because they think that it may be a great vocabulary that they are not understanding. Halloween nights, florist, wedding planner, lasagna, these are from cultural influences. But it does not absolutely mean that you have to omit all these words with cultural influences from the textbook because language and culture are correlated with each other. So instead of omitting these words, we should make the students familiarize with the cultural influences from the very beginning of their childhood. For example, in Bangla medium institutions, other than this textbook, they have also introduced Radiant Way. They have introduced Complete English. They have introduced Cambridge Grammar. So along with this book, we can introduce other textbooks that can make the students familiarized with the Western culture, because language and culture are correlated with each other. But whenever you want to know a second language, learn a second language, you need to know what food they eat, what dresses they wear, what festivals they enjoy. In research question 4, I wanted to know how the teaching methods influence students' learning motivation. In the analysis of the classroom observation, I found that in male campuses, majority male students wait for the teachers to explain contextual meaning. Female students show some enthusiasm to understand the meaning from the stories. There are no interactive tasks inside the classrooms, because when I visited the classrooms, I saw that those classrooms are completely lecture-based. Teachers come to the classrooms, they give lectures on the stories, they actually read the stories out loud inside the classrooms, then they explain the Bangla meaning of the text. If there are some important vocabulary that the students do not understand, unknown vocabulary, they write on the text board, on the whiteboard or blackboard, and then they tell the students to copy them from the text, from the book. Students did not show any enthusiasm to participate in the interactive activities, because this is how they have been habituated to learn English language. All teachers explain the stories in Bangla after reading them aloud in the classes. Very few teachers can use English language while teaching the African classes. This is very, very disappointing. Because if you are an English language teacher, you need to set an example inside the classrooms that it is possible to speak in English inside the classroom. If you do not become an example, how can the students know that they also are able to learn English language and speak like you? Teacher-centered classrooms are there. Teachers make errors while using English language. Questions from students are not encouraged inside the classroom. If you see my classroom observation, some of the classes, it was observed that students tried to ask some questions to the teachers, but the teachers scolded them and said that this is not the time to ask questions. But in English for Today, this is designed to teach this textbook by using communicative language teaching methods. That means you have to engage the students in many interactive tasks and activities, which is not happening in that area. Female students show some enthusiasm. Students want to practice target language even with mistakes and errors. There are PPT slideshows made in some of the female campuses that I've seen. Female students want to explain meaning from the text by discussing among themselves. Even though skill is not properly practiced in female campuses, but still they are trying. The teacher's questionnaire based on variables, these are the variables that I wanted to identify, and I based my questions on these variables. I wanted to know what kind of methods they're using, appropriateness of textbook, about teaching strategies. The data analysis of the teacher survey says there is a very disappointing slide which shows that CLT is not practiced properly inside the classrooms. They also have very less enjoyment in teaching, and they also have textbook difficulty to teach English language. When I asked whether the syllabus is relevant regarding the learning outcome of the course, majority teachers said that the syllabus is not relevant. When I asked them during their interview, they said that actually students fail to understand the stories of the English properly because of their less English language proficiency. But I think that it is not always there is less English language proficiency for which they are not understanding the text. It is also because of the method and because of their unfamiliarity with the cultural influences of English language. And students need to learn English language according to the teacher's opinion. They think that students only come to the class for getting a passing grade. In the teacher's opinion on teaching grammatical rules, majority teachers said that they teach grammar rules, but they teach grammar rules in a different manner. In a very traditional grammar translation method, they write the rules, they tell the students to memorize the rules, because this is not how communicative teaching, language teaching promotes grammar teaching. Grammar translation method has been avoided in the Bangla medium educational institutions for a long time. The same thing should also be followed by the Dakhil Madrasa students. Teachers' opinion about communicative language teaching activities, it was observed that very few teachers can practice role play activities, peer work, peer feedback, discussions and debate. Communicative language teaching has been known as the most motivating way to learn English language and to teach English language, because it engages students in the activities and task-based teaching. In the teacher's opinion about TTT, it showed that the teacher's talking time always goes beyond the limit. I want to show you the overall findings so that you can have a synopsis. So in the overall findings, in short, I can say that gender differs significantly. In my thesis, I found that gender differs significantly in second language motivation among Dakhil level students and Alia Madrasas. Female Alia Madrasa students are more motivated to learn English language than male students. That was observed both in quantitative measurement and in the qualitative analysis. Female students at Dakhil level use more effective learning strategies than male learners. textbook stories hamper student motivation. Learner motivation has association with achievements. Female Alia Madrasa students at Daki level do better in classroom assessments than males. And the existing teaching methods at Daki level do not contribute much in the enhancement of student motivation. These are the recommendations for teachers to enhance male and female learner motivation inside classrooms. You see, teachers need to attend teachers training in communicative language teaching. English major teachers need to teach English language at Daki level because in many of the campuses I found that computer science background teachers, science background teachers, Islamic studies background teachers are teaching English language. This has to be stopped. English majors need to teach English language at Daki level. There are also a huge shortage of teachers in some of the Daki campuses. I found that they are hiring teachers from Kamil level or master's level to give a part-time duty at Daki level. That means they do not have any fixed teacher for Daki level. That also needs to be improved. The teachers must create interesting classroom settings. They must ensure student-centered classes, ensure implementation of communicative language activities, initiating interactive classes. With this textbook, there are many audio clips and video clips attached, but these video clips and audio clips are never played inside the classrooms. These need to be played. But in the Bangla medium institutions, many in Bangla medium institutions play these video clips or audio clips. Teachers must avoid fixed preset topics for paragraph writing inside the classes. When I asked them, how do you teach paragraph writing inside the classes? They said that they give preset fixed topics and then students go to their home, they write their paragraph, write it as a note and submit it as an assignment. This is absolutely not how the teachers should teach paragraph writing inside the classes. The recommendation for
overshooting the time.
39 minutes.
Yes.
Recommendations for improving learners' aim for motivating Alia madrasas. In madrasa education board, I found very interesting significant thing that they must ensure proportionate allotment of marks for each language skill. When you want to learn a second language, you need to master 4 different skills: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So if you look at the allotment of marks, they have allotted 40% marks for reading, 40 for writing, 10 for speaking, and 10 for listening. But speaking and listening are very important skills for learning a second language. That means 80% marks goes for reading and writing. That means even if you skip listening and speaking skills in the exam or assessment test, you can easily get a better grade. Actually, you can easily get passing grade. You can also get a grade A or a grade B. So this has to change. There absolutely should be equal proportion of marks for each language skills, so that both teachers and students are motivated to learn and to teach English speaking and English listening. Teachers' guidebooks should be updated. All madrasas need to maintain a minimum acceptable standard, ensure recruitment of qualified teachers, ensure availability of teaching aids and equipments. In many madrasas where there are very large classes, there are no microphones, there are no they need those equipments inside the classes. They must ensure that all 4 skills are taught in Alia madrasas. For NCDP, I recommend that textbooks need to be revised and updated at regular intervals. They need not update the primary level textbook of English for English for is there in primary level as well. That has to be updated after 2012. It was not updated, so it has to be updated. Needs to ensure that the use of there's an original colored version of English portal which they do not use. Colorful pictures and prompts always motivate the students to learn English language. So they should provide colorful textbooks for Alia Madrasa Daki level students. The topics of textbooks can be changed and updated. For example, the current topics, the COVID-19 vaccination process, these things can also be included in the text. All textbooks need to be selected based on the needs of the students. These are my final recommendations this is actually for what I have been working for all these times, all these years. I needed to find out what recommendations I can give for my Alia Madrasa Daki level students so that they can improve their motivation. Male students should develop interest towards English culture. Their parents also should encourage them to learn English culture. They should let them watch English movies, English TV shows. They must use target language for practical purposes. They use more social strategies. They must use more social strategies, like making friends with those people who speak better English. They should use effective strategies by watching English TV shows, programs. When they watch a movie or a TV show or a news channel, they should try to understand 30% or 40% from it. They should try, not try to understand 100% from it, and gradually enhance that goal. They should use flashcards whenever they do not understand an unknown meaning. For example, if you do not understand, you're reading an article and you find out there are 10 words which are unknown to you. You cannot go to the dictionary over and over again and open the dictionary over and over. That will take away the interest from reading. So what you should do is that you should write those words in a blank sheet of paper and write your guessed meaning or inferred meaning, and this could be the meaning of this text. And then go to the dictionary to find out how much closer you are more. You should, males should use more memory strategies. They should avoid peer humiliation in classrooms. It was also observed during my classroom observation that in male campuses, whenever one or two male students are trying to speak in English, the other students are laughing at him. It should be stopped. This peer humiliation, bullying from other peers should be stopped, and taking help from the teachers, it can be avoided. They should take risks while using target language or to receive more parental support. Since female students only have one lagging and therefore they have less ideal self-image, they should also try to have a clear ideal self-image. They should also set realistic goals. For example, I will be learning English language within 3 months. It is not a realistic goal. In fact, if you say that I will try to survive a 5-minute English language conversation after 3 months, that could be a realistic goal. Females should set realistic goals for learning English language. They should have a very vivid and clear imagination that yes, after 5 years or after 10 years, I will be speaking very fluently English. Enhance pronunciation skills. Many female Aliyah Madrasa students at that level were interested to enhance their pronunciation skills. So their teachers also say that they sometimes after the class they contact them and try to learn pronunciation skills. So they should see more news channels. Sometimes they can also say something in English and record their own speech and listen to it over and over again.